Welcome to the regular city council meeting, October 9th, 2017. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, everyone's here. Except
Lisa,
we have, Lisa's not here. I'm so used to seeing you there now, Judy.
I'm here.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Approval of the minutes of September 25th, 2017. Does anybody have anything?
I have a couple. On page 2, it's down about just past halfway down, just before Councilmember Kurzweil starts to speak. This should be added. He also added he was hoping we would have a process to move toward that goal and have some example documents from other communities that have already created this rather than trying to determine it on the fly. And then on page 5, the second line, it was the head coach of the, should be added, combined high school lacrosse team. That's all I had. Thank you.
I have one. On page 5, for council comments, when I'm speaking, I thanked everybody, and I thanked DPW as well, and I don't want to forget them. So I believe it was police, fire, council members, the committee, the sponsors, volunteers, and of course DPW. If we could just add them in. Yep. Thank you.
I'll move the minutes as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Approve the bills? Any things? Anybody have anything?
Questions? Thank you. Lynn, I just had some questions on the check register on page 1. What I'm interested in is the refund of a summer tax overpayment to CoreLogic. I don't know if you're familiar with how that happened, or is that a tax tribunal issue, or?
No, that is a case, I believe, of an individual parcel paid what they thought was the summer taxes, but it was the summer taxes plus penalty and interest, and so we refunded the difference.
Refund, okay. Then on page 2, please. It looks, I'm just curious about a pole barn roof that was replaced.
That was at the DPW yard, that was a budgeted item.
Budgeted item that was, okay. No, it's not a lot of money, but I just want to make sure we're staying within the budget. And then there was another summer tax refund of $6,632 further down on that page. Zach, I'm just curious as to the reason for the refund. It's about $6,000.
That one, I don't know about, Judy.
It's a duplicate payment. A payment came in from CoreLogic and a payment came in from another mortgage company when they refinanced. So we had to send the payment back.
Okay, I'm just trying to hang on to as much revenue as we can, but I understand it. Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
I have a couple.
Go ahead, Mary.
So kind of along the same lines, though, I was going to ask the same question except on a different page. So RMC Building Tax Overpayment, $6,632.
That was
Is
the one
that-
we just talked about.
That's the same one? So it's just a duplicate on here? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Next, please. The expenditure report, page 1 of 1. Just wanted to bring to the attention that Lynn, the administration budget is, the percent of the budget used is about 29, almost 30%.
I'm aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
I move the bills.
I have a comment. Yeah.
Harvey.
This is the end of the first quarter, and you can't do too much projecting from that. But I do want to point out that the revenue report is less than 20%. Well, the expenditure report is closer to 25%, which is where you would expect it to be. I think at the second quarter, significant attention should be paid to that catch-up. Thank you.
I would concur with that.
Okay,
A second?
all in favor?
Aye.
First. Thank you.
Approval of the agenda.
I don't have any additions or deletions.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public comment.
Hello, my name is Dennis O'Connor, and I'm representing State Representative Kathy Crawford tonight. Mrs. Crawford has a very busy evening schedule. She attends multiple events throughout the 38th District, but from time to time, she'll send a representative to a local city council meeting, a township board meeting, or a school board meeting, just to observe and listen to local community issues, and that's why I'm here tonight. I left a card, a business card, at each one of your tables, so if you have any questions or concerns for Mrs. Crawford, either contact her directly or email her. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tim McClory. I am your risk manager for the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority, and that's you guys so wisely so many years ago decided to do business with for your property and casualty insurance coverage as well as your risk management services. I'm here tonight with good news. This past year, our board of directors made the decision to give back an additional 23-point-some million dollars back to the members this year, since 2006, we've given back over $250 million back to our members since 2006. As a member of the MMRMA, I just want to remind you that we are not an insurance company. We are a group of self-insured governmental entities that pool together for insurance purposes. So basically, as a member, you guys are basically quasi-owner of the company. That's why we're not sending checks off to dividend holders of insurance companies. We give money back to our members, and that's why I'm here tonight. In addition to that, we give money back. We don't just give money back for the good behavior of the membership. We also give money back to help you not have losses, which is our risk avoidance program. We call it our RAP program. Also encapsulated in the RAP program is another program called Certification and Accreditation Program. So I encourage all department heads to go onto the website. If you don't have a login, you can request one at www.mmrma.org. It'll take a day or two to get it. Please go on there and look at our standard RAP grants. We just did an update to that. There may be some things you have in your budget that we might be able to help you pay for. Specifically, we feel it's really important that for those employees that need certifications and or accreditations, we can help you pay for that. Usually on the RAP side, the risk avoidance program, it's our 50 cents and we'll match to your 50 cents. But on the CAP side, it's our 75 cents to your 25 cents. So I highly encourage you to look at that. The RAP program, you guys have taken advantage of that since 2009. You guys have received back almost $29,000 back from the MMRMA in risk avoidance money. And again, I encourage you, please check it out. It's free money. This last year, we actually went over budget, and I call that being a victim of our own success. We went from $1.25 million, now we're giving back $1.75 million. So we've upped it $500,000. So I'm excited to report that, but I'm more excited to give you a check. Your portion, as a member of the MMRMA, you're a state pool member, so you'll get two invoices, one for the state pool loss fund, which is a fund for all the pools to take care of the pool's self-insured retention obligations. And then there's another, the general fund. So you get the net asset distribution, but because you're a pool member and because the pool is having good success in controlling losses and increased investment income, we're able to give this money back. So your two checks, the first one is $20,687, and the next check is $9,647. Bringing your total to looks like around $30,334, and that brings the total given back to the city of South Lyon to $206,542. So congratulations. I have this for Lynn, and I'd also like to point out that Lynn does chair our state pool committee, and she does yeoman's work with that committee to help advance risk management causes of our membership. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you have any
Thank you.
questions,
Always
okay?
nice to see you. Heard that.
Thank you,
I know,
Lynn.
I can come back next week. too, right?
Just to sit in the crowd with
Yeah,
you.
just, I'll give these to Lynn, and congratulations, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
See him in the crowd, I make sure I say thank you.
Great.
And Steve have a gift for us.
Carl, you're getting better at that.
It's like Santa.
Greetings, Council. This is October
Could you-
9th of,
Carl, could you say your name just for the record?
oh, yes. Carl Richards, 390 Lennox, people. And since we didn't have a microphone or recording of the previous minutes of the meeting, the last meeting, I thought I ought to reiterate what I spoke to the last time and make a few extras to enlighten you about all the good stuff that I see going on, okay? So I'm repeating some of my previous comments, okay? The Historical Society's Depot Day was the biggest and best we've ever had. We estimated 1,000 people were in attendance. We had more vendors than ever before. The vendors all seemed to do very well, and the games for the children, the train, the antique tractors, everything seemed to go very well. I wasn't able to participate too much, but I did show up with help at the end, okay? Also, the next item, our Cool Yule preparations. That's all handled by a separate committee, okay, within the Historical Society. I'm not on that committee. But whether the downtown parade part goes well or they do get it organized or not, we're going to have our preparations and celebration at the depot area with Santa Claus and cookies, festivities, and tours of the school and the museum and the chapel. Okay. Moving on, in November, we're closing the museum, I believe, on Sundays. We won't be running anymore, but they may go on the alternate day, which was Thursday. We've voted to change it from Thursdays to Saturdays. Okay, so the museum will be open on Saturdays more prominently next year than through the remainder of this year. Okay. For official notification, the gazebo roof was completed, okay? It was a full tear-off and retrofit, okay, with brand new shingles, and it was really old, what we took off of there. The fentanyl that would be placed on the top is still under consideration, but the ladies didn't like the idea of witches flying through the air on a wind, directional wind finder, okay? So we've agreed to go with a locomotive or an antique tractor or an antique train, okay, for our fentanyl design, okay? And the bidding is still open on the deck for the gazebo. The highest bid we had was $25,000, and that's way over our range. And we're looking for lower bids on that, so that hasn't been nailed down yet. Okay. The doors to the museum have been completely R&R'd. The latches, they close evenly, shut and latch evenly, okay? That's an improvement we've made, and it all works smoothly. Some other topics I want to mention fast, okay? Heinen and Engineering had a very nice open house this past Saturday. I went. I believe it was their second one this year. there's a lot of people in attendance. I didn't know too many of them, but some of them knew me, and they were very glad to see me. And the place is absolutely spectacularly beautiful on the inside. Everybody would be greatly impressed. They're certainly an asset to the community in their business of air conditioning systems and furnaces. Across the street, Mr. Gary Fagan's project, a renovation of the old Brown site, is coming along beautifully, as we can all see. It looks good. And what you don't see there is what Oakland County mandated that they do underground. Okay, and since I was recovering, I don't have any pictures of it. I didn't get any pictures of it, but I knew it went on. And whether or not Oakland County contributed any funding to the matter or not, unknown to me. But Oakland County's got in the action on the underground, okay, which is a good news. That's good news. You all know what a problem it's been. I hope it works, okay? South Lyon Woods Trailer Park, okay. I've been talking to them. I go in the office every so often. They've agreed to give me in writing the new improvements that are on deck for the fall, above and beyond what I mentioned in the springtime for the trailer park, which is continually kept improving. Hats off to them. They've spent several hundreds of thousands of dollars. As you may or may not know, Dante's Real Estate has recently closed up. That was the building right next to the bakery. I do not know where they have gone, and I have not talked to the owner of the property, Mr. Carroll, but he and I usually have a good line of communication. Okay. Regarding the ordeal that I've been through, I don't care to go into the details, but I will say it was exactly 60 days ago that I had my injury, that I got hurt. And I'm not completely fixed up yet, but I'm coming along and I'll be able to walk again independently. And overall, this ordeal has given me a greater understanding of what the handicapped people have to go through in our community with where curbs and approaches are concerned. They've really got my attention of late, okay? And I don't know if I paid that close attention before, but I certainly do now in our community. Anyway, the handicapped, I can see what they have to go through. It's terrible. It's a wonderful blessing that we've got a place like the South Lyon Senior Center and Rehab facility up where it used to be Lyon Gardens and the old Lutheran home, okay? I'm hoping we continue to have good weather, as we've been blessed, and no major storms to knock things over, because we don't need any more problems. We've had enough. Okay? Thank you very much, people. I'll try to hope I was clear enough. I could ask if you had any questions, if it would be allowed, but, you know, nobody wants too much interest. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Carl.
Yeah. I'm going to put it in reverse and see if I can go straight up the hill. Power up. Victory.
I told you you're getting better, Carl. Okay. Old business. We're, number one on the list is consider second reading of the ordinance to repeal section 58-83, criminalizing the possession of a switchblade knife.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this was presented for first reading and approved last meeting. There are no changes to the ordinance. This ordinance will bring the South Lyon Code of Ordinances into compliance with state law.
I move this second reading.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Consider the first reading of the ordinance amendment rezoning partial 21-30-126-003 West End Industrial Park from I-1 District Light Industrial to RM-1 District Multiple Family Residential.
Mr. Mayor and Council, so this is coming back on the council postponed this matter pending receipt of the plan from Rowe Engineering. And this comes to you in a posture from the Planning Commission recommending denial of a request to rezone the property from I-1 to RM-1. And that denial occurred in December of 2016. Council first addressed this matter in July of 2017. And you've been provided with I provided a brief package of information, the deeds to the property in the 2000s. There's the site plans that were approved in 1998. And then there's the application for rezoning, the supporting materials, Mr. Fuller's review. There's also some, in the rezoning application, there's some information from the applicant's broker. And then there's a letter and supporting materials from Mr. Linnell, attorney for the applicant. And Mr. Aventini from CIB Planning is here as well. And his review is contained in the package you received tonight as well. As you've seen that before, I believe.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. The plan that you have from Rowe, the reason we had this, as we talked about at the previous meeting, the reason we had this prepared is one of the comments the applicant made when they applied for this rezoning request was that the parcels in the property basically is too small to accommodate industrial uses that are permitted in that particular zoning district. So, I mean, we're trying to be as thorough as we can and also as fair as we can to the applicant as we do with any applicant. And so the Rowe was asked to prepare a plan that looks at what size buildings you could put in there. And you can see there's a range of sizes, everything from 57,000 square feet down to 8,800 square feet. And
Actually, 114,000 is the biggest one.
Number 5.
Parcel 5.
oh, that's the parcel size. Yeah, the building size is 57,900.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes,
That's
okay.
okay. So I think what we were looking at is what size buildings can we fit on here? And are there, folks out there looking for buildings that are in the size range? I mean, this is not this is not a scientific type of thing. It's, we're looking at what's possible here and looking at the land uses. I know right now, for example, in another neighboring community, we're reviewing a building for just under 12,000 square feet. And we've had a lot of demand for buildings in that size range. Whether the attributes of that location are significantly different or not, that they'd be interested in that site versus this site, I don't know. But I can say that this is another piece of information for you to take into consideration based on the comment at the time of application that the applicant felt that these lots were too small for the industrial uses that are proposed in that district or allowed in that district. But I'd also like to comment too, I would say that our original recommendation still stands. And I think one of the biggest issues that we identified in our original review letter was our concern about putting residential uses next to an M2 use, which is primarily the tube mill. And we're concerned about the noise that emanates from the tube mill. I'm sure they're concerned about not having a lot of additional residents living next to them too, because as you know, when people are not getting their peace and quiet and they have a noisy neighbor, which in the tube mill's been there for a long time, that they're not going to be happy and they're going to come and see you and they're going to come see the city manager. And I mean, beyond who they're coming to see, it's just not a good idea to put residential uses like that and in particular owner-occupied residential uses, next to a manufacturing use that's creating a lot of noise, banging, that sort of thing. And that's why we had zoning in the first place, because that sort of thing was happening a long time ago with the Industrial Revolution. So we started separating our land uses. So, I mean, to me, that's kind of the big issue. I know there's going to be debate back and forth, and we've got experts on both sides that will talk about, you know, the viability of the property as it's currently zoned. But, you know, one of the big criteria, in my opinion, is, once again, the noise from the tube mill and the impact it would have on a residential use, introducing another residential use right on the abutting property. So,
Is this site platted? Is this a plat, or is this just speculation on sizing of lots?
I couldn't tell whether it was actually platted, but, that's leading into a good question. So if it were like that, that doesn't mean they couldn't be consolidated and split again. Or if they weren't, it could be divided up differently. So I think there's potentially options for different layouts. We just worked with the way it was laid out originally.
Okay.
Is the current layout, meaning the road, a hindrance to development? As far as if you wanted to put a larger structure there, you've already have the road that's been in existence in that parcel for I don't know how many years. Is that a concern as far as affecting potential developers of that property, saying, look, the type of, or I'm limited by what I could build there based on the layout of the road that's existing. So for me to go in there and build anything to fit, like on that parcel, I might have to either take out part of the road or change the layout of the water and sewer, how it's already established on that property. Is that a hindrance to any development right now, the current layout?
Well, I'm probably not the most qualified person to say that. I'm just the
I
planner.
mean, I guess what I'm...
In my opinion, it potentially could be, but that's why we did this, to show that there are alternatives that where you can fit smaller buildings in there, and there are folks in neighboring communities that are looking for that type of, that type of building.
I guess when the plan, when the road was put in, what was the plan at that point? I mean, was there interest in having light industrial around the circumference of that road? And was there interest in it at the time, or was it a situation where, look, I think we can market this property for, with having outlying lots and maybe something in the middle based on this road design? I'm just kind of curious how that came about as far as this is what we're going to do for this property and put this road in there.
Yeah,
like
that might be a good question to ask the applicant. 'Cause
Okay.
I'm not
I mean,
sure.
that's
It's like 1989. or
Sure.
something
I mean,
like that.
was it the road came first and then you tried to parcel it out?
I think it
Or
happened
was
at the
there
same time.
interest in that type of a development at the time the road was going in? I guess that's one of my major questions.
Yeah, I think the applicant.
Which came first?
Yeah.
Kind of like the chicken and the egg argument.
Yeah, I
so.
don't know.
It's my understanding the road came after the rezoning to industrial.
Oh, I understand that, but was there a developer or somebody that was ready to come in, not a developer, but somebody saying, look, if you build this road with this configuration, how you did it, and you have these lots, I will come in and put buildings or buy a couple of these parcels based on this layout? Or was it one of those things where we did the road trying at first and then tried to market it based on a design that was already in place?
Well, the sign had the lots on it when they opened up, when they put the road in, then the sign went in, was already demarked where the lots were.
No, I understand that, but I mean, my question is, was there any interest in the layout of that property, meaning not with the parcels as they're set up today, but before the road was even put in? I mean, was there any attempts to market that property based on the rezoning before the road was put in? Or was it more like, we put the road in, we sunk all these costs in it, now let's see if I can market it for what the parcels were? I mean, that's my question. I mean, what led to the road going in first before the property was marketed?
Sewer plants.
Yeah, let's ask the developer or the guys that
Yeah,
own it.
I mean, that's my question. I mean, how was the property marketed before all the money went into the infrastructure?
What drove the decision for that
Yeah.
configuration?
Yeah, We could take him right there.
Okay.
Hi there, Mark Zerlag, Thomas Duke Company. When the property was annexed into the city, came in as residential, the property owners felt that there would be demand for industrial. So they asked for and seek the rezoning to industrial. The property was vacant. It was marketed for as industrial, as vacant land. There was not any interest in it. And so they took a gamble. They felt that by putting the roads in, that might attract smaller users to the site. And that has not happened.
Okay. Was there, what attempts were made to market the property before the roads, or the road was put in?
Rob, may I?
Sure.
Before the roads were put in, how long was the market property as industrial? I can speak that once the roads were put in, that there has been, I think, 5 or 6 different commercial industrial firms that have marketed since the roads have been in.
But it is pertinent that it wasn't marketed very long before the road went in. I mean, yeah, so.
That was before my involvement.
No, that's fine. I just, you know what, I never got, that's a question that just came up because I was trying to figure out.
Okay, thank you. When you first annexed.
When it was residential, were there any attempts to market it as residential property before the request was made to rezone it to light industrial?
everything comes in residential, so.
Oh, I understand, but I mean, if you're trying to get developers in for residential, which,
Can we have the gentleman in the back speaking, identify himself?
oh, yeah, I'm
Yes.
sorry,
I know he's been here before.
yeah.
I don't know what that you guys used. There should be a remote.
This is the sewer plant right over here. So they're right next to the sewer plant. Two plants. Light. Lights. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Ralph Nunez. I'm a land planner, landscape architect. My name of my company is Nunez Design. We're at 249 Park Street in Troy, Michigan. I'm here working with Mark O'Rourke on this piece of property as far as the West End Park, the rezoning from light industrial to multiple family. Before you have basically on the image on the left is the site configuration that's on the zoning map. And primarily it's right now industrial, light industrial. On the right is basically the most current aerial photograph that we can get from Google Earth. It shows indication of the road that you were just talking about that had been placed through the development in order to attract potential investors and developers as far as builders for industrial properties. It was originally laid out, has pavement is in place as well as hydrants and utilities there. In the front of the property, adjacent to Dixboro Road, is, you can see in this depression right here, was the start of the stormwater detention facility. The aerial is really clear as far as showing kind of vegetation. All this area along this portion of the property, thank you, is wetlands that goes off along through here, adjacent to 10 Mile on the north, and then continues almost along the whole eastern side of the development. The industrial I-2 site, pipe manufacturing group, is basically zoned up through here, portion of the wetlands. Along through here, they have some staging areas of their product, as far as in through here, and then you have, this is also light industrial below. So I'm Ralph Nunez. You have Mark O'Rourke, President of Landmark Building and Development. You have Richard Lenore as far as the attorney at law, and then Cliff Siebert is their civil engineer. A little bit of background since I haven't been here before, and it's, thank you for the nice drive down as far as you've got a beautiful little downtown area. My education is, my bachelor's degree is in landscape architecture from Penn State. I received my master's degree in urban design at Lawrence Tech. I've got over 40 years experience in practice, as far as, and 33 of it is in my own practice. I'm licensed in multiple states as far as Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Missouri as a practicing landscape architect. Previously, I had about 12 of those additional states. I'm certified by the National Council of Landscape Architects Registration Board, CLARB, and also a member of American Society of Landscape Architects. So my master's degree, I can call myself an urban designer based on my education as far as master's degree from Penn State. And I graduated in 2015, so I'm a recent graduate. So you can teach old dogs new tricks. Expert witness, I've done a number of cases in Illinois, Texas, and Michigan. In Rochester Hills, former planning director used to call me the fixer, used to call me in on difficult sites and sites trying to get them out of going into a lawsuit. So we were able to do that successfully. For roughly around 20 years or so, I've been an adjunct instructor at Lawrence Tech in the College of Architecture. And Urban Land Institute, I'm a member of that, and I've participated in 16 advisory service panels throughout North America. So I was asked to look at the site. I apologize. The presentation was done very quickly. My father-in-law just passed away this week, and we're here trying to help out. So we started off as far as looking at Oakland County, as far as the big white box. Lyon Township, which I've had a couple projects in the past, located in the lower corner. South Lyon is even in the smaller portion of it, as far as, and at the very end of it, as far as in the township corner there. And the subject property is over on the west side. Again, this is the parcel showing the existing zoning as far as light industrial, as far as in the northwest corner, the site that we have below us, I-2 to the west, and then it shows an RM1 on the plan map that we received from Seabrook Keys, and then you have the additional township, Green Oaks Township, on the west side of Dixboro Road. One of the things looked at as far as all the documentation was the South Lyon Master Plan, which was very well prepared. One of the things that caught my attention was the wetland map. So this is the blow-up of the wetland map with the overlay of the site. Again, you can notice that I believe it's been documented in either the planner's review or in the master plan that there's a limited amount of industrial space in the township. One of the things that was mentioned was, or wasn't mentioned, was the amount of wetlands that are constituted part of that industrial, because right now you see that this wetland basically clearly takes over approximately about a third of the site as far as what we have right now out of the 32 acres. The I-2 area, you have the northern portion of it, and also along through here, which basically restricts the use of that space. And then the property to the south, you've got a water body. It's heavily vegetated. You really can't see that until you turn on the topography, and there's actually another depression over just south of that. So you've got existing wetlands. This, too, is property that is zoned in light industrial, but this is where your sanitary facility plant sits in the center of that buildable area. And then you have the old railroad that used to service these industrial tracks, which was most likely why they were the industrial tracks along there, but that since now has turned into your bikeway system that you have trying to lead to the downtown, and it's more improved, I think, on the other side of the road here. You have the existing zoning map on, as far as from your website on the left, and you have the existing land use from the master plan. So on the zoning, it shows that this in the corner piece is light industrial with an industrial 2 level below us. Over on this side, you see the area that shows it as undeveloped at this point. One of the things that was interesting as far as going through the master plan, because I believe there was a discussion with the Planning Commission that this should have came in prior to the establishment of the current land use master plan, and that I believe that it was mentioned, or it was known that there was a potential land deal on the table on this piece of property, that they had the intentions of going for a rezoning from light industrial to residential, and they were asked to hold off till the master plan was approved. So I'm not quite sure why that happened, but the situation is that there is a master plan. Master plans do get changed. Unfortunately, they're good for 5 years and have to be revised. Some of them are revised based on having to go through a PUD. Sometimes there's a special area that has to create a infill structure as far as an overlay district, so that has a result as far as changing it. And then the other one, which we don't like to use, is if it has to go through a consent judgment, the master plan gets amended. We're trying to go through a rezoning of the site. One of the things that in the master plan that was really important as far as the documentation, and that was, I believe, in reading some of the comments from the planning consultant, was, we need to look at the amount of light industrial space that we have in our township. Or in the city, city limits. It's limited. The fact that we need to look out for the future of what could come to the township as far as on there. So we looked at it from a land planning standpoint as far as location of the site, and looking at additional industrial sites that are outside of the range as far as the city limits, but are closer to where the main access points are onto the freeways. So those are really key factors for that. The other thing is in the master plan, there's a lot of interest and a lot of emphasis on the downtown area, infill of new buildings. Basically, new buildings and vacant lots, infill of some of the older ones, land work, live-work units, making it pedestrian-friendly, crossings and that, as far as barrier-free, which the gentleman mentioned earlier. And so the idea of, and then while we were looking at that, this was talking about the emphasis of the master plan, and so we wanted to see if that same emphasis was talked about as far as light industrial. And so when you do a word search on light industrial in that document, which is I think 94 pages long, light industrial is mentioned 4 times. On page 5, page 37, it basically has a goal of strengthening the environment for light industrial users and large employers. And then on page 73, light industrial is mentioned twice as far as in 2 tabs, as far as light high intensity has light industrial and general industrial. But there's nothing else in the master plan that says, hey, we're out there, we're marketing it, we're supporting it. We heard comment that there was an interest for a landscaper that might be interested in renting a space or building a space there. But my office is in a landscape contractor industrial park in Troy. It's a use of the office. I did it because it was cheap space, and it's a lot of space, and I spread a lot of stuff out. So I'm in kind of I am in an industrial complex. But for a landscape contractor, they need an outdoor field. They need a storage space for product material, storage, equipment. The general office is relatively small. So as we go through there, we went through as far as, what is light industrial? So the definition as far as on the classification as far as land uses, it basically says it deals with the design, assembly, finishing, packaging, storage of product and materials. Basically the facilities are administrative. They can be research, assembly, storage, warehousing, and shipping. And the characteristics as far as the nature of the buildings are for packing, shipping, arranging, the presence of outdoor storage facilities, tractor trailers, loading docks, access to rail, power utilities, and possibly smokestacks. Oops. Come on. So,
What's the source of that?
I'm sorry?
What's the source of that definition?
It's at the bottom of that as far as land use planning, cover classification systems. I have that down. I can give that to you. This next one is copyrighted from the ULI Urban Land Institute, Emerging Trends in Real Estate 2017. Right now it rates Detroit area, metropolitan area as fair for overall real estate prospects. We were looking at as far as the market for industrial. They're stating that during the recession area, as far as the economics, as far as industrial ratings are slowing down. Some investors are looking at going more for apartments as a relatively safe investment as far as if there's a possible turn down as far as in the market. One thing is that there's less emphasis on existing R&D flex product oriented towards smaller tenants. They had a quotation from another builder, but that also depends on the local market if there is a demand. So, and then this is also from ULI as far as their emerging trends. It talks about a number of investors as far as taking risk, as far as building warehouses and strengthening the local market, and also the emphasis on the flex space. Hit again, sorry. And then the last one was we're looking at trends. A recent trend that was in July in Urban Land magazine was basically putting urban housing into a transforming industrial area. So they're showing how markets where all the millennials are moving downtown, they're finding it's too expensive now to live down Detroit, and they're now moving back out into different places, so they're reinventing things. And we're currently working on a project right now between Ferndale and Pleasant Ridge as far as an industrial tract that's zoned, and we're looking at multiple family housing, some interesting land uses on there as well, but large manufacturing is just not happening in this area. So the plan before you was basically the West End Park. They're looking at the proposal of 66 units as far as 2 single-family attached, as far as in the RM. The area in gray, as far as along through here, is the area of wetlands, as far as along through this, and you have some area of blue. There's some existing vegetation along through here, and it really doesn't give it justice as far as when you drive out there. I think the city's sign is located right around them through here, but this is heavily vegetated along 10 Mile. There's a couple areas that have some access points that you can see through kind of the Phragmites, but then it's picked up as far as the existing vegetation on the Highland area. So it's really hidden back from the roadway as far as on 10, and then you come up to the intersection of Dixboro coming south, and then this is the existing road. As the question from the commissioner earlier was, can it be developed by utilizing the road? Trying to be green, if we can save the pavement, and it has to be cleaned up as far as there's a lot of weeds growing through there. But the utilities are there, the pavement's there, the curbing's there. If we can keep that and continue to use it and also look at the stormwater detention facility, it's probably over-designed for the fact that it was originally designed for an industrial park, a lot more pavement and roofscape than what you have on residential. So some of the benefits of the multiple family housing is new housing product type as far as opportunities for the city, the reuse of existing infrastructure, road and utilities, increased green space, less intense development, increased water infiltration, preservation of wetlands and water quality, which is important in the master plan, reduction in impervious surfaces, down zoning to a less intense zoning district, provide a buffer from the existing I1 or I2 zoning district to other single-family areas to the north in that. One of the things that was mentioned as far as, we have neighbors adjacent to it, but if we look at the existing I2 plant facility there, you have residential much closer to it on the north side that have been there, and I'm sure they're complaining about the noise that are there. The advantage that we are to the northwest and sound travels and winds basically go from the west and northwest to the south is that will help diminish as far as some of the sound attenuation from the plant facility. There's Seabrook Keys had submitted in September a rezoning request and some documentation. And reviewing that, there's a reduction of traffic trips by 65% as far as going from 387 residential vehicles versus 1,108 light industrial vehicles as far as through this area, as far as demand. So, and then that also then causes a major reduction in road impact as far as wear and tear of the roadways coming down from the freeway down Pontiac Trail and then through the town or through the city. This is the architectural presentation as far as a model that they have built in the past, which is what they're representing as far as in their site plan. As far as when this is more of a ranch type, as far as two-car garage, two single-family attached. With an aging population, stairs are getting to be an issue as far as and also barrier-free. So this is something that we're seeing a lot of in some of the other municipalities that we work with. When we looked at this, this was the truck operator's map as far as Oakland County, showing the road. We're down in this location. I'll zoom in. Basically, we have now the city of South Lyon through here. You have green as far as designated routes. So you have the freeway 96 through here. You've got Grand River, which is the northern one that parallels that on the south side. And then there are access points as far as the interchange here to take this down where I came today, off of this one, down and around, straight through the downtown area and then over and then down the dirt road to get to the site. So there's limitations as far as those roads, as far as 10 through there. There's definitely limitations on Dixboro as far as the dirt road conditions on there. One of the things that when we were doing the research on light industrial, most of the facilities are for sale always tell or basically show the distance from their facility to the airport. I didn't want to waste my time going down to the airport, but here's the airport down in this bottom circle here. But what I did is basically looked at our site in relationship to getting to the key intersections as far as to the north on 96, and then also going over to US 23, and then also to 275. So the next one is a little closer, showing the site here as far as where we're at, or close to where we're at right now. And so if we leave the site going 10 mile, going up and over and getting on at this intersection, it's 6.47 miles. If we go up the way I came off of here, it's 5. If we go down through the center part of downtown and then go out 8 mile, it's 14 miles to 275.
Can I stop you right
Yes,
there?
sir.
That was all known when the request was made to rezone this property from residential to light industrial, wasn't it? What has changed since that property was rezoned with the location of the freeways? I mean, the freeways haven't moved.
No,
Nothing has changed as far as when the original request came in to rezone this property from residential to light industrial, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I mean, when the request was made all those years ago, that was the same thing, right?
I understand, but unfortunately, I wasn't the planner at that time, and had we been involved in that, we would have probably just kind of shook our heads. Why? Because if you would have done this analysis,
Exactly.
you would have said, I don't think so. And so, and again, this is, you've lived in this community. This is the first time I've set foot here. So you have home field advantage. I had to learn this in basically a very short period of time. So I apologize that I'm repeating some of the stuff
that's
that's
fine.
common, but yes, exactly. This was known previous as far as in the 2000s when this was built, and should have been kind of a red flag right off the bat.
Okay.
So those are showing the mile radiuses as far as, or the distance from the site basically, there's not a real direct route going over here. You got to go around the lakes and down and around to get to 23. This one is really kind of the fastest way to get up to 96, and then either way. There we go. If you go on industrial, as far as go in Oakland County and put in industrial and ask for properties are for sale, you get the tag that there's like 800,000 properties for sale in Oakland Township, which is kind of ridiculous. You go to one of their maps, and it starts to show, and you start to see the arrangement of where those are in relationship as far as kind of following the freeways in the urban areas coming through there. If we zoom in a little closer, you have the city of South Lyon located right here in the center, and there are some properties for sale. Some of them are vacant properties up in the industrial area in South Lyon Township. There's a number of sites there. There's also a number of buildings that are located around. This one, I think, is built in 1904, so it's an old building that's down in here. But you can see that most of these industrial sites want to be close to the freeway, where you don't have that in this. And as the Commissioner mentioned, it should have been kind of a red flag to begin with. As far as existing, if you drive out to the site, these were on Google Earth Maps Drive, and I drove it again this evening, is that it's heavily vegetated on the south side. So you have the property over here. You continue, there's the city's marker in front of Singh Development and Singh Boulevard, I believe, on the right-hand side. As you come down a little further, there's a gap in some of the vegetation underneath the existing power lines. You can see the wetlands through here, and then there's the existing trees that are in the back of it, and then another view of that also through here. So there's kind of a double buffer where that wetlands are. So yeah, you've got a large wetland field through here. You're approaching the intersection at Dixboro and 10 Mile, and so you have, and then you have the intersection here. Some difficulties as far as if this is going to be for trucks to get around that, as far as they're up higher in a cab. So this tree is definitely going to restrict some of the visibility at that intersection. And then the road condition coming down through here is not well. We did receive the plan that was prepared by Rowe Engineering. The client wasn't really sure why that was done, but it was explained earlier this evening. We've looked at it, and basically, even if we didn't have this, one of the reasons for this shouldn't be industrial is basically, and it kind of went hand in hand with the plan they gave us, is that there's no wetland natural feature buffer along here. You've got buildings that are touching it and adjacent to it at that point. There's potential damage to wetlands, which again is in the master plan not to do. Parking circulation doesn't really work on this plan. You have a situation where you've got these changed buildings that running through here. There's a service drive that dead ends. So I'm not sure how vehicles or trucks are supposed to back out through here and get back out and around in the circulation. A lot of the parking that's on here, there's no joint access agreements as far as for cross driveways or minimizing some of the impervious areas that could be done. There's no loading docks, there's no truck wells as far as on any of these, and majority of the parking are all dead end. So you come in and it's very difficult to get out. Actually, Building 5, I would have, I'm sure, working with the fire department, he would have issues as far as for safety purposes, how to get around this for fighting a fire. But all these parking areas dead end directly into the building. So you can't, you're either backing into the building or you're coming up and around and going from here. So this plan really, I'm not sure why it was done as far as what it's actually supposed to show. You also have then the thick vegetation along the top here that basically restricts it as far as to market this as a oops, I'm sorry. To market this as a really a light industrial site. There's no window. There's no basically any type of signage that can be done as far as or visibility to see that this happens, where on most industrial sites you want them located next to your freeways. They back onto it. The road noise, it doesn't bother them. It doesn't bother the workers or the residents, and they have the visibility for their truck drivers and their clientele to come and go as far as on through there. You have an increase impervious area as far as all the parking surfaces on here and the buildings. You've got, and so the other issue that, as was mentioned, is it's just too far away from the freeway. You're talking 5.5 to 6.5 miles away. So the project was started somewhere in, I think, 2000. You have the start of the roadway that was there, and you have it's been sitting in 2017 basically as more of a derelict site. I think it was, build it and they'll come. Unfortunately, it was built. It went through before the recession. It went through the recession, and now the recession, and they haven't come. So we're really requesting the approval of the rezoning from the R1 to, I1 to an RM district. I believe the attorney has a few things to say, and I thank you. If you have any questions afterwards, I'd be more than happy to answer those. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I don't want to belabor some of the points that have already been gone over. There are some of the highlights, as you may have seen in my cover letter. We have the owner here. We have the owner's representative. We have Ralph the planner. I have the applicant, as well as several members from Thomas A. Duke. I think what I would like to say, in just sort of an encapsulating statement, is, and some of the questions sort of dictate this, and that is that this site doesn't work. And some of the issues why it doesn't work have been there forever. Maybe many of those factors have been there forever. Hindsight is 20/20. I'm certain the gentleman who I have no affiliation with didn't build this site without any effort or belief that it would work. But what we have here is something you don't typically have in a rezoning. And that is the benefit of knowing that this zoning doesn't work. The market shows that. It's been marketed continuously. Efforts have been made. These gentlemen have paid taxes. They paid for the infrastructure, the improvements. They paid for it all. And we get to see here, instead of speculating what should or shouldn't happen, what might work, what might not work, at least with respect to light industrial, we know it doesn't work. It flat out doesn't work. Now, you might say, well, what makes you so confident of residential? I would tell you that certainly relying on my client, his expertise and experience, and looking at the city and the surrounding areas, this is a strong residential area. If anything, that's an understatement to say this is a strong residential area. The idea that there was, I don't want to say a mistake, but an effort was made previously that didn't work out, doesn't mean that the property should sit in perpetuity the way it is. This is a chance to use this property. It's a chance for the gentlemen that own it to sell it. It's a chance for it to be used by someone in the community to build housing for people in the community. It's a chance to increase the tax base. This is a unique situation for many reasons. Most notably, at least in my experiences, it's a request to downzone. That's almost an unheard of concept. Everybody who comes for rezoning, I've been a part of many requests that have been granted, requests that have been denied, etc., always to something more intensive. In fact, I can't recall a time when I've made a request on behalf of a client to downzone. We're talking about going from light industrial to a residential zoning. Typically never considered. Here, why would it be considered? Other than it makes sense. We're happy to answer questions, myself or any of the other gentlemen here. Feel free to ask.
Excuse me, Mayor. I need an identification.
I apologize. Richard Linnell, you want my address?
Yes, please.
2804 Orchard Lake Road, Suite 203, Kego Harbor, Michigan, 48320.
Thank you.
I have a question. What's the property being marketed for? What's the price it's listed for right now?
Well, it is under contract. You want to know the last? The list price was $1.8 million.
Okay, it's under contract right now based on pending if we rezone it?
That is part of the contract.
Yes.
What was the property?
So it was listed for 1.8 million, but now it's under contract, and the contract is dependent on whether or not we rezone the property rezone the property from light industrial back to residential.
That is one of the conditions, yes. Just to reiterate, and I think it's already been said, but just to reiterate, there hasn't been any interest as it exists. And so one of the conditions for my client to have interest in the property is to rezone it to something that would have market appeal and would be economically viable.
So what you're saying then is that your client made a business decision to purchase property, and for whatever reason, the price that your client has put on that property is not generating any sales or offers to purchase.
I think I might say it differently. Just to be clear, my client is the party that has the property under contract. A sale has not been consummated. One of the conditions of my client consummating the sale is to rezone the property. So my client hasn't purchased the property. He's entered into an agreement, an option
But your
agreement.
client is willing to pay 1.8.
I don't believe that's the actual price. That was the asking price.
That's the asking price. But
Substantially in the neighborhood.
But what is the true value of that property? And this probably goes to Mr. Smith, Chuck Smith and Company, or Rob Smith, is what is the true value, or the broker, what is the value of that property priced as industrial property? Because you have two different values. There's two different market values depending on how your property is zoned. So somebody out here in this room is attempting to maximize the value of that real estate. That's what is happening here, is a maximum value of the real estate. How 1.8 million was reached, I don't know. I wasn't in the room. But somebody has sat down and said that I purchased this property back, I don't know, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. This is what I paid for it. This is what I put in terms of site plan improvement. This is what I think my property is worth today, $1.8 million. But in order to get it, I need to have it rezoned as residential. So somebody is trying to say to the city of South Lyon, you need to help me make $1.8 million. And the way you can help me make this money and this incredible gain on this property, because I think this property was bought for about $100,000. So South Lyon helped me become rich and rezone this property, because I can't sell it at a decent price for what I want to get out of it if it's priced as industrial property. So why is South Lyon being asked to carry the burden here of assisting somebody to sell their property at a maximum value? Why is that our job? Why is that my duty? To ensure that this private owner receives the maximum value of his property. When he consciously bought the property, came to the city, asked for it to be rezoned to industrial, it was zoned residential, so now we did what he asked us to do. It's zoned industrial, and we're finding out that maybe, despite the arguments you're making, this may be a very good zoning category for this property, given the arguments raised by our city planner. I just don't know why it's my job to make these gentlemen very wealthy when they are the ones that came to the city and asked for the change in the beginning. We did nothing wrong.
Well, first of all, I'm not representing that the city has done anything wrong. And to be clear, I don't represent the seller. The seller is in the audience as well as their agent. What I would tell you is that I don't think the city's under any duty to allow the seller, so to speak, become rich. I don't even know if this will make them rich. I wouldn't deny that a 1.8 million is a massive number, but I don't know what they have into it. But I'm not saying that it's the city's duty to put money or allow this person to maximize it. What I would request, and I certainly wouldn't put it in the form of it's a duty, but what I would request is that the city consider the empirical evidence of what's happened or not happened with this site. I represent somebody who would like to use the property and has made a determination through a lot of effort and analysis with professionals that the best way to use this site is to turn it into a residential multifamily site. I
understand that, but there were no attempts to do that when it was zoned residential, when all this new construction of all these residential subdivisions were going in back in the 90s. I know because my subdivision was built in the 90s. So, I mean, there was an opportunity back in the 90s to sell it as residential property and develop it, but there was no attempt whatsoever, it appears, after the sale of the property to develop it as a residential site. And the intent was to come before the city council to turn it into or to rezone it to an industrial site. So I guess I'm hearing two different things. You now want to do it as residential because this whole commercial thing didn't pan out. Yet there was no, unless I'm not hearing it, there was no attempt to develop it as a residential parcel back in the 90s when building was going on all over the place. So I guess my first question is, why wasn't any attempt made to develop it as a residential when it was zoned residential?
Mark Serlag again. The owners of the property own another industrial project in and around this area. It's been successful. They thought that they could duplicate this here. So when they bought the property, they thought that that this would be a good site. They put their money where their mouth was. They bought the property, got the rezoning, and then spent a lot of money on putting in the infrastructure and running the utilities, in advance of what they thought was going to be a good industrial market. What has happened over the last almost 20 years is that there has been zero interest. And I just confirmed with the owner, since 2001, they have not rejected a single offer. There's been zero offers for industrial. And so when our firm came in to market the property, we've been on it for about 3 years now, we started with industrial. And so from my knowledge of 30 years selling land in southwest Oakland County as a specialization, we looked at, okay, if somebody was going to do this for industrial, what's the going rate? And so that's where the market was set on industrial prices, not residential. Now, through the thousands and thousands of marketing pieces that our firm has sent out to industrial developers and users in Southeast Michigan over the last 3 years, we have had zero interest. The only interest at all has come from residential developers because of its strong community and the desire to be, in South Lyon. So, again, I guess I would repeat what Mr. Linnell said. This is not just finding a piece of property and trying to maximize profit. This is one that they have put money, put the roads and the utilities, and they were wrong. It didn't work, and they've got 18 years of proof.
So I'm going to look at this a little bit differently. I'm going to look at what's in front of me and what we have, and there's a few things that stand out. First thing is that this was zoned residential. Then we were asked, not me, but at the time, was asked to rezone it to industrial, and now we're asked to have it rezoned. So that's back to residential. So that's already happened. We just went through this master plan revision just recently, and the master plan calls for industrial. So I'm looking what is in front of us, and I'm looking at what our planner and our planning commission has recommended, and they are saying that we should stick to the master plan. So then I look at it from just the common sense standpoint, and I realize that there's not very many houses in this unit, in this proposed unit. I get that. But I look at all the growth coming out around us. I look at all the housings coming in Lyon Township and Green Oak and all over. And there's so much residential, and there's all this rezoning going on, and our roads can't take it. So given the facts in front of us, and not just the roads, but the congestion and everything, I'm not going to sit here and willingly revise and go against what the master plan says just because of a bad investment. So I'm going to stick to the master plan. If you have other options you want to pursue, industrial, I know there's other facilities in the area. And industrial just doesn't mean factories. It can be whatever, dance studio or something. I'm just giving an example. So there's other workout facilities, office buildings. Have at it. I mean, that's what it's there for. But I'm not going to sit here and go against what our city planner and our planning commission, we put a lot of trust and faith into, what they recommend. And they're recommending not to rezone this. So I'm going to stick by them. Thank you.
Did you want to rebut that?
Just to address the 2 points you brought up, I'm not a planner. I respect you have a planner. Planning Commission looked at this. But here we have a particular piece of property that you don't, it's not a master plan that we'd like to see this. We think this is the right area for this type of use. Again, we have a site developed for it, and it's just represented by Mr. Zerlag. There hasn't been a single offer. Thousands of pieces of mail or email, efforts to contact potentially interested parties. Zero interest in its current use. The second about the traffic, as Ralph brought up, Mr. Sieber did a traffic study, he did a traffic analysis based on the proposed site plan versus as approved. And I don't have the numbers exactly in my head, but we're talking about just over 1,000 trips generated by the light industrial use and under 400 from a residential use. So to your point about the accumulation or increase in traffic based on the rezoning of agricultural land, probably to single family or multifamily, et cetera, this piece is already here. But what we're proposing is a downzoning which would result in less traffic, less intensive use on the services of the city.
See, I don't know if I necessarily buy that argument, because if we rezone it to residential, then immediately you're going to start building, and we're going to get those houses. It's not our fault that you're not marketing correct, not you personally, but it's not being marketed correctly and it can't sell. Maybe lower the price. I mean, that's not for the city of South Lyon to go against their master plan and make changes because of a bad investment. I mean, I'm going to stick by what our planning commission recommends and what our city planner recommends. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just reiterate, zero offers. When properties are for sale, people come in at lower prices. Just because you think your house is worth $300,000, if the market thinks it's worth $200,000, you may not sell, but you'll get an offer for $200,000. Someone will watch, they'll notice, they'll do it. Someone could have been watching now for 17 years, and they would notice, and they could make that offer.
Well, that's up to you if you want to lower the price or not. That's up to the
I'm
owners.
just telling you, and I'd be happy, we have three gentlemen here from Thomas A. Duke, that the asking price isn't necessarily an impediment to somebody coming in and making an offer that they believe is based upon the market.
I wanted to comment, Mr. Munez had commented on the northeast corner of that property being the residential, and I just wanted to let you know that most of the housing that's taking place around the tube mill was people that worked at the tube mill, so they weren't unaware of what the environment that they were going to be living in, and it wasn't an impediment to them finding satisfaction in those homes. I don't know that people coming in cold will have the same perception of the tube mill and whatever product might end up taking place as a function of the wastewater treatment plant that's just to the south of that as well. I was wondering, Colonial Industrial, it's a development that's a couple of miles west of us on 10 Mile at Rushton Road. It's had complete occupancy since they built it back in, I'm guessing, the late 90s. And it's been enhanced since then. I mean, that is something, it's a lot of small contractors and small companies like that. Why couldn't you entertain something of that scale? I mean, I know you have $900,000 worth of concrete streets in here and infrastructure. We can't do anything about that, but you do have a platform here that could support that type of building environment. I don't know if it'll end up generating the kind of revenues that you're hoping for, but nonetheless, it seems like a viable kind of a project there to me. So I was just kind of curious, did anybody ever look into that? You'd have to go to the mic, please. Thank you.
Mark Sarlag again. The owner of this property owns Colonial.
Okay.
So that's what they had in mind.
Well, and
was-
Dennis is
yeah.
enhanced right next door to it then. So, I mean, is that, those are substantially less grand scale types of facilities over there. I mean, it's essentially what looks to be the 11 through 18 in the center area, where it's more a larger structure that's kind of broken up into smaller entities. Is that completely unacceptable for that site?
When they bought this property, they envisioned having somewhat of a duplication of Colonial, as well as lots for some of their users there to grow into something a little bit larger. And that is what is, again, it's been mentioned many times, there has just been zero interest in that happening. That's why they put the roads in, is to get a step ahead and be ready for development, and there was zero interest.
Well, the idea of this, I'm not completely sold that it couldn't end up being completely satisfactory as residential. The idea of not capitalizing, not diversifying our tax base, it just seems like there's an answer here. And now, Mr. Smith, when you ended up doing Colonial, did you build the buildings with an expectation that these contractors and that would end up moving into them, or did they say, please build these types of structures because we need some place to grow our businesses? Okay.
I'm
And
sorry.
that hadn't,
I'm
you
sorry.
hadn't looked at doing that in this site. That's, I guess that's kind of what I'm seeing is one of the failings of ended up getting something going. And I don't know that, because Colonial, I know that they went through a great deal of struggle with Green Oak Township when Jan Plass was the supervisor over there. And I think, wasn't it Beck Development that had built that stuff? I thought it was the Lefevre boys that had built that stuff. Lefebvre, I'm sorry, yeah. And I mean, all the struggles that they went through with the township and, that the usage and all that kind of stuff, and it still ended up moving forward. But I don't know, as a matter of fact, I do know that the same structures would never end up cutting mustard in today's world. I know that there was lawsuits about, ADA compliance and all that kind of stuff, and nobody that's actually renting owns the building. It's your building, and so they couldn't be held hostage to the lack of ADA compliance there. So, but nonetheless, it seems hard for me to imagine that those types of entities, those smaller businesses, couldn't find a home in something that was more ADA compliant and met all the today's standards to be able to be built on this site. It may not end up being enough to cover your nut. I have no idea, but it seems like something like that could end up being successful over here.
I just want to clarify something your client said. On the other commercial property that he owns, it was my understanding, based on what he said, that the structures were built first, and then the tenants, then they were able to lease out the structures after they were built. Is that correct?
I'll clarify, but to be clear, I represent the applicant, not
Oh, I'm sorry, the applicant. Okay. I just want to make sure that was.
That is what he said.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand that.
That was my point.
Chuck Smith, what was the question, please?
I just want to make sure on the other property that you owned, that you have been able to have some success renting out the structures. It's my understanding, and I just want to make sure I'm clear, that not only did you develop the property, you built the structures before you had tenants, and then once the structures were completed, that's when you were able to get the tenants.
Well, some of them were sold ahead of time. I mean,
Okay.
All
right.
When we started the development, we put them up for sale, and some were sold before they were built.
Okay, sold completely or leased?
No, there's 12 units in a building, and some were sold and some were not.
Okay, all right, and the remaining, but the ones you sold gave you the footprint, I guess, or the not footprint, but gave you the ability then
Well,
to...
basically, they were all the same. They were divided into 1,000-square-foot units, and a lot of them bought them and finished them themselves.
Okay, thanks.
So I have a couple of questions, couple of comments. I've been designing manufacturing plants in the auto industry about 25 years, and I've been around the real estate probably as much. I think Maggie's got quite a bit of experience in real estate, representing as a lawyer and for years. And when it went to the industrial, and you had the zero, responses, and when you were marketing it, not just you, but the other firms, was there, there had to be some serious brainstorming sessions going on somewhere, especially since you already own the other one. Was there some kind of responses or some kind of feedback you were getting from these developers out there or these people? Did you get anything at all? Nothing at all? And then let me finish, and then you guys can answer them all, I guess. The other one is down the road on Rushton Road, Dennis Dubach bought that dilapidated monstrosity down there, which is the Quonset huts.
The huts, yeah.
And nobody wanted it. It was a total disaster. And he has turned it into a gold mine. And it just was in the newspaper. And all the people that are in there right now are expanding. Every single one of them, including the CrossFit gym that's there. I shouldn't say CrossFit, TrueFit gym.
It's tumbling next door as well.
And the gymnast. They're all adding on because their growth has been so good. And he did put a lot of money into it, and he was all by himself, and he did quite a bit of marketing in the area. I also know another gentleman in town that wanted to open a very, very big CrossFit gym facility, couldn't find anything in the township or in the city, and ended up at CrossFit Novi near Rock Financial Show Place and next to Total Sports in a big warehouse, industrial warehouse. I've mentioned CrossFit a few times. I've been doing CrossFit 5, 6, 7 years. They're in all these warehouses and buildings all over these industrial parks now, and they're taking up large amounts of property. Barwis Method over in Plymouth and Northville off of Sheldon Road and M14. He's taken almost the entire complex. He used to be the strength coach at the University of Michigan. He's now taken down walls inside there and built an amazing facility. And so my question is, was there any attempt to make some kind of, when I'm designing manufacturing plants in the auto industry, we did greenfield, brownfield sites. You know what's going to be there, what's not going to be there. You know what you're going to be fighting against. Was there some attempt on you guys' part to figure out why this wasn't working? I guess being it was rezoned, and then now you got to come back and do it again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So through our 3 years, and then a couple of our competitors 2 or 3 years at a time prior to us, I can only speak for us. When we market a property, I'd mentioned about thousands of marketing pieces that go out, but that doesn't tell the story. We reach out to developers of other industrial parks. We reach out to all users of industrial property. Anybody that might be in the audience today that has an industrial operation or something that fits that ordinance has been contacted by us. We're very, very thorough in that reach out, and we're also trying to pride ourselves at looking at a property or a building and trying to find out what is the, if think outside the box, and if necessary, look at other types of uses. And so that's what's brought us kind of full circle to here today, is that the feedback that we were getting from people that would actually, put up the money, invest in this community, move their facilities, build new, as opposed to taking an older building at a less price and doing some renovation. What was, told to us repeatedly was that it's a great spot for residential development, too far from the freeway. There's a challenge with truck access, and it's just, it's too risky, was the conversation we had. The users that you're referring to, if there was an existing facility and there was vacant spaces, to have, somebody come in and in exchange for, they do, renovations, exchange for free rent, there's all kinds of ways to get creative to do that. But when you're talking about a new construction with the cost, that would be prohibitive. I know the facility you're talking about for CrossFit on Grand River in Novi. We were involved in the marketing, the sale of the buildings next door. The rent that they pay there is significantly less than what somebody would pay in rent on a new building. So those types of uses, the fitness, and some of the others that take up that large space, they get really good locations on second and third generation space. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mark Schaefer. I'm also with Thomas Duke, and I prepared some documents earlier on regarding valuation. And with regard to the asking price, I just wanted to make a comment because I have talked to industrial developers recently, sold land, and what you have to do is make the argument that this location or any location is the absolute best place for them to put their money at that given time. And when I get resistance, one of the questions I ask is, what if the land were free? One of the buildings that was looked at in the plan that Roe did was a 57,000 square foot building. Well, Ryan Dems is building a 57,000 square foot building right now in Novi, and the construction costs are substantially similar to build a similar building in Novi versus building a building in South Lyon. And the answer that I've gotten, and it wasn't with Ryan, but was, this is so remote, there's so much risk in it, it's too far away, it's so ahead of the curve that I can't even see the horizon, that even if the land were free, I wouldn't speculate and place my money in an industrial building in that site. And I think this gets back to the question that you were, or the point that you were making about enriching the property owners. This is a partnership. It's a partnership between the property owners and with the city. And there are these gentlemen behind us that feel that this is the right site for them to invest in. It's the best site for them to place their money in, which will increase the amount of taxes that are generated beyond what's been generated by this site as vacant land for the past however long period of time. And it's not about enriching them. It is a little bit of an exit strategy, sure, because it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. And so, that's the point I was thinking is maybe that you look at it like that was a faulty thought. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to what you're thinking.
Yeah. Your argument just doesn't make sense.
I know the feeling.
Because you're saying that you have spoken to somebody in Novi who you may have proposed this concept out here in South Lyon, and the answer was, well, the property's too remote. But there's a model already in this area. It's the Dennis Dubach model that has worked and is very successful. Why didn't people say to Dennis, you know what, Dennis, I'm not interested in getting industrial space from you because you're too remote, you're too far off an expressway, you're too far from the airport, you're too far from 275. Now tell me, why is the formula working for Dennis Dubach, who is only maybe about a quarter of a mile away from this property? Why is it working for him and it's not working for these gentlemen? Tell me, why does your argument, why do you want support for your argument when you have a model that's already successful and working?
Did he just build, the Roe engineering plan suggested 250,000 square feet of new space. Is that what Dennis did?
I don't know.
Was it all new construction that he did?
He has one new construction there.
Yeah.
One
out of pottery, the Polish pottery place that was downtown relocated to his facility, and they built a place for him.
He had existing structures. He wasn't working with vacant land.
That was my
Well,
point.
maybe you need to put something there.
Well, you said my argument didn't
Yeah.
hold water, or that it just didn't make any sense. Getting construction financing for new construction and getting a bank to partner with you on a site, whether you're going to be an end user, you're going to be a developer, or you're going to try to do a joint venture with a tenant. When you have a track record like this, is almost impossible. And in the valuation documents that were going back and forth with the appraisal, that was actually one of the assumptions that they took, that if you put the land in for zero, that it worked, but you had to get $500,000 to pave the road, and you had concerns about how the trucks were going to work out. An argument that doesn't make sense is trying to build 250,000 square feet of industrial space in this area.
Right, but that argument was made back when the request was to make, I mean, your exact same argument was the reverse. Not you, but I'm talking about when it was brought before this city council back
20 years ago.
20 years ago. Number one, and number two, we have looked at that property as industrial for the last 20 years. And see, the problem is when you develop the city and your residential, all your property is pretty much developed now, except for certain parcels. That industrial for the last 20 years was part of the plan going forward. And all the other property in the city, when you look at these subdivisions that have since come in, has been developed. Now we're looking at a situation where we have a property owner who requested the city 20 years ago to rezone his property from residential, where there was, I still haven't heard any attempts to market it as residential 20 years ago, to light industrial. He took a chance. He hasn't developed the property like he did after spending all that money on the infrastructure. It's not a build to suit, or it wasn't like he marketed the property as a whole without doing without putting the infrastructure in. He put it in, he took a gamble, and he lost. He can't, there's been zero interest according to everyone that's been in front of us today, but we have focused on that parcel being light industrial for the last 20 years, and now we are to the point where if you look at the studies, 65 or 66% of our city is residential, and we only have, 4.3% of the land left in the city of South Lyon zoned as industrial. That's our problem. And now you're trying to get us to rezone property where we only have 4.3% of our land left in the city of South Lyon zoned industrial. You see our problem?
Our city planner, I'm looking on page, he made a very, very good argument, a very, very important argument. And it says the city of South Lyon, this is exactly, what Mike has just said. The city of South Lyon land use inventory. Our inventory in our city is rich in residential development. We have a ton of what you are proposing. We have residential. We have residential coming out our ears. I would give an arm and a leg to have some of the high industrial areas that Lyon Township has, that Green Oak Township has. You can only push residential property taxes so high. This city has flatline tax revenue because we do not have a good industrial commercial base in this city to help with our tax revenues. We have severe pressures on our budget because we don't have strong commercial industrial development in our city. And now we're going to compound it with 66 homes? 66 homes. That's it. The residential development going on in this area is occurring in Green Oak, it's occurring down in Lyon Township, and we're going through all of this for 66 homes. And what is the city of South Lyon left with? Well, it says right here. It says, however, industrially zoned and utilized land in the city accounts for 4.3 industrial land, which is a critical component of the city's land use system and is an important source of jobs, income, and services. So we rezone that property, we're going to be about 3.5% of our land in our city is going to be industrial use. Why?
Just as a clarification, 4.3% is zoned and utilized for industrial currently. Is this being part of that equation? Because this is not being utilized for industrial.
I think that's based on land area. Not
So
land
not
area
use.
that's zoned. Yeah, it's the land area that's zoned for whatever the particular use.
We don't have the tools. And so I'm looking at this and I'm saying, you know, we have a master plan. I see where there is a need to retain the city's limited industrial land. We don't have a lot. This is it. This is it. Rezoning the land to a residential use really does not address a need in our community. I don't know what need is going to be addressed with these 66 additional homes. I just don't know.
It's going to
And
be residential housing.
66 homes.
Correct.
What need?
People are going to live in them.
Every house in our city is sold. We have a very high demand in the city. What we want is industrial use.
I got to ask a question about the master plan. It was known to the city that we had someone who was the brokerage firm had a prospective purchaser that was interested in this property for a non-industrial use prior to the master plan being finalized. What considerations were given before it was being finalized was given to that interest that was submitted in writing?
Carmen?
Mr. Mayor, when they came through, we're in like the final month of getting ready to adopt the master plan. We'd already made the final revisions, and we had taken public comment. And when this request came through, a decision was made by the Planning Commission. They did not want to take a timeout, reconsider their request, and then take it up later. We had waited long enough. We wanted to get the master plan adopted. What they did hold out to the applicant was they would consider a master plan amendment. If they submitted a request, they would consider a master plan amendment. They would look at all of this information, look at that site, do a more detailed analysis, and if it appeared that there were other more appropriate land uses for that particular site based on all the factors we've talked about, they would then be in a position to recommend that you amend the master plan and then could consider a rezoning that matched up with that. And we had asked the applicant to submit a request for the master plan amendment. They chose not to. They chose to continue to move forward with the rezoning request. Okay, that's the way it shook out. At the meeting, the Planning Commission meeting, we did say, look, we're willing to look at potential other land uses, other zoning categories. There's conditional uses are a possibility. Conditional rezonings are a possibility. So we had other options available, but they chose not to. They chose to go forward. So basically what ended up happening is it was an either or. It was either industrial or owner-occupied single-family residential. Okay? There are other land uses and other options in between them. There's a wide range of options that we could have looked at, we could still look at.
Give an example, would you?
Let's use this as an example. Let's say owner-occupied maybe isn't the best use there because of the noise and so forth. Owner-occupants use their backyards more than would somebody in an apartment building, for example. So maybe we would look at an apartment complex instead. You can build noise attenuation into the building. You have folks that are less likely to spend a lot of time outdoors. If they're not happy with the noise, they have the ability to move on to somewhere else. They're not in a position where they can't sell their home. And the rental market's going to be strong for the next 20 years, so you can always get people who want to rent quality apartments. It's a different scenario. We could have looked at that as a possibility, but we didn't have that option because of the way the process moved forward. I'm usually the person advocating the type of use they're proposing in communities. Empty nesters, I teach that on behalf of the state, encouraging what we call missing middle housing and empty nester housing. Were it not for the tube mill being located there, we may have a different opinion.
Well, I think most of us, our concern is the diversification of our tax base.
Right,
and that's the biggest driving force. If it's going to be one form of residential or another form of residential, how diverse is the tax base as a product of that?
Right, but I guess the point I'm making, and maybe that is in your opinion, maybe that's the strongest point. I guess the point I'm making is there are multiple criteria that we look at with the rezoning, and there were certain criteria that, in our opinion, weren't fully satisfied and addressed. And the big one, we already addressed, I thought, the zoning and the amount of industrial land. The thing that wasn't addressed was the noise factor, and they still haven't addressed the noise factor. It's not going to go away.
All right.
And I think
I want Mary to say something. I kind of bypassed her earlier.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
She's been wanting to say something.
Bob, did you want to come up and say something? Because I'd like to hear your input too. It's fine.
Carmen, did you want to mention?
There's something you want to say.
And then we're going to...
Well, hang on. I still have something to say.
Call the question.
Yeah.
I think as the city's economic development and DDA director, it's important that I talk about my experience with economic development for the last 39 years. Southeast Michigan, 18 of my last 19 years professional experience were with Oakland County. Future land use regarding new construction. No community realizes or implements its entire master plan overnight. It's reaffirmed every 5 years. And I don't know of any community that has ever realized its master plan overnight or within 5 years or within 10 years. It reaffirms its direction based upon public input every 5 years. I would like to know at some point what marketing other than multi-list has been undertaken by the property owner and the realtor, both in the past and the present. And it's interesting to note that light industrial now on North Mill Street is thriving and expanding and has no problems with access to Metro Airport, no problems with access to I-96, I-275, or US 23. In fact, there are 2 requests coming in to expand on North Mill Street. The industrial property tax base has the potential to reduce the tax burden on city residents. Absolutely. The diversification in our master plan is essential for future land use. We've just come out, who are we kidding? We've just come out of the nation's worst recession since the Great Depression. Somehow that's glossed over. That's affected us for at least 10 plus years. The subject property is the last, just so that you know where I'm coming from, my awareness. The subject property is the last undeveloped zoned I-1 property in the city. The comments, it is the last. It is our last chance to diversify our economy and our tax base. No doubt, as the downtown continues to maximize its economic potential, that alone will attract more business owners who potentially want to live and work in this community and build a small facility for their business in this community, as is done in communities with a high quality of life throughout Michigan. Now, the applicant keeps describing location doom and gloom. It is my job as the economic development director for this community to say, I want the general public and the media to know that all of our current occupied light industrial and heavy industrial are extremely successful. Many are expanding. Michigan Seamless Tube, in a less than perfect location, is choosing to do a multi-million-dollar expansion. So, I have a real problem with continuous bashing of our location, which is an indirect bashing of our community's potential to have a successful economy in the future. So I really think that in my experience, the courts will look upon, no matter what action is taken, no community realizes its master plan overnight. Thank you.
You're here.
Thank you, Ben.
John, really quick, I'm sorry. So I just wanted to touch on 2 points as to why my perspective, the way that I'm going to look at this. I took a poll of some residents that live in South Lyon, just on my own, and asked, what do you guys think? And I had a handful of people say, we don't want to be New Hudson. We don't want to be Lyon Township. They're building warehouse after warehouse, factory after factory. We don't want that. But then on the other hand, I've had people say to me that we don't want to see more homes built. We don't want that either. So to me, it's a toss-up. It really is. But what it comes down to is I see traffic is still posing an issue. And I'm not convinced that adding 66 units, which is on average, two cars per household, adding extra traffic to what we already have, I don't think our infrastructure can handle it. So that's kind of the perspective I'm taking, and that's on average 2 cars per household. And that's if the plans pan out as you say they will. And most of the time construction tends to change. So that's kind of the path that I'm taking in this. And I just don't think it's appropriate for South Lyon at this time.
I certainly respect your comments, again, Richard Linnell. But your comments suppose that you have traffic potentially from a residential development or no traffic. The idea that and that's, again, if everyone assumes that light industrial is viable, which has been said, or at least suggested by several of you, as well as your planner, and your director of economic development, then there will be traffic. And so then it becomes the numbers not believed, residential versus light industrial, because there will be traffic. The statement was made that no community realizes its master plan in 5 years or 10 years. I wouldn't disagree with that. I'm sure he knows more than I do. But this site's been here for 17 plus years. And there's been comments made about this is all we have, or this is not all we have. This is a large piece of the very little land that we have. And there's been development, I think, Lyon Township and Green Oak Township. But what that might suggest is that people could have come here. There's infrastructure in. If I was a buyer, I'd look at this and I'd say, I might get a heck of a deal here. This might be, as Mr. Schaefer said, the best place to put my money. Because I know they're not giving away in Lyon Township. I know they're not giving away in Green Oak Township. They might not be giving away here, but I bet I could get a heck of a price because this guy's been sitting here. He's been carrying this thing on a loan or out of his own pocket. And yet they don't come. It doesn't happen. And so I understand that the city may want it to be light industrial. I'm quite certain that the owners want it to be light industrial. But they found out over 17 plus years that it doesn't work. They're not here because they don't like light industrial. They just told you they have, in fact, the complex you mentioned. That's theirs. They thought, great, this is a winning model. All we're going to do is replicate it over here. And 17 years later, no replication of any kind. It's not a desire to wipe out light industrial to harm the tax base of the city. There was an inference that somehow my client or the current owner doesn't believe in the city or doesn't have faith in the city or doesn't have respect for the city. That's not true. The fact that my client's here shows he has an interest in this city, in being a part of the city. You saw the facades. Those are very nice facades. Those are all brick facades. That caters to empty nesters, people that came here with single families. Their children have moved out. They want to stay near the city. They want one-level living, the ease of condominium living. This is what is viable. The light industrial, again, we have a unique situation here where we're not speculating, well, if it was light industrial, how do you know someone wouldn't have built the building? How do you know someone wouldn't have made an offer? How do you know? You don't have to speculate unless you don't believe what these gentlemen who own the property, not my clients, have testified to. If you believe them, nobody has been interested despite their best efforts. You've heard about the efforts of Mr. Zerlag on behalf of Thomas A. Duke and his client. Nobody's come. We get to know that. It's unfortunate. I'm sure if they could, in hindsight, they would have sold, as suggested. Why wasn't it marketed more heavily as residential? I think the answer's been given, maybe not in the direct way, but the answer's been given. because they had this other park, this light industrial park. We're going to do it here. This is going to work great. Not every plan works. And they've suffered the consequences of it. That's not the problem of the city council, but they've suffered. They didn't come back a year later, 2 years later and say, oh, we made a little goof. We got caught in a declining market or in a flat part of the market. No, there's been great times. Early 2000s were fantastic. Yes, then we had a dip. 10 years, that might be a fair characterization of the dip. But we've been coming out of the dip for many years now. There are buildings going up in the adjacent areas, large buildings, numerous buildings, but nobody's come to this site. I'd ask you to consider that.
John, point of order. I mean, do we have a vote or?
Yeah, we just call. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Sorry to interrupt. That was my point. Was if there's nothing on.
I recognized or not?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
Thank you. I've heard. We're getting to the point where we're hearing a repetition here. I'm ready for the question. I call the question.
No question?
No. Is there a motion?
Motion, you got to make a motion.
Who's done?
There's no motion, the motion
Fails.
Matter fails. Lack of a motion. Say that.
Motion fails.
Can you repeat that?
There's no
Basically,
motion.
There's no motion, so the
No
matter
motion.
presented didn't come to a motion.
Next item.
You're going to have to make a motion, one way or the other. The recommendation from, and
It says
I would strongly recommend that if you're
Okay, I'll make,
you need
yeah.
to continue the discussion and figure out whether a motion can be made to deny or approve,
Amendment.
or if you want, there are other alternatives for a motion. Not making a motion,
We got it.
I'm not
We got-
sure is
We
adequate.
don't have a agenda note, which would.
There's no action, right?
Want a motion? I move to deny the request to amend the official zoning map of the city of South Lyon, rezoning parcel number 21-30-126-003, West End Industrial Park, from the I-1 District Light Industrial to the RM-1 District Multiple Family Residential.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
It's a roll call. Just get it on the record.
Tim?
I would encourage the council to discuss and add some reasons for it, whether it's referencing the discussion tonight or other documents that you'd be presented with.
Well,
Provide some type of basis for the motion.
John, I can
Plan, Planning Commission.
I can speak for.
Development Director are all in harmony. And that's who we have that are responsibly supposed to be representing us, who's in a position to do what they do. And we have a lot of history on our side with the master plan that we're sticking to it and we're trying to keep it in the integrity of it because we don't have much left. So we got our responsible professionals, the planner, the economic development director, everybody on this council, past history, rezone, and now rezone again, kind of like, and it's like, so, I don't know how you want to state that. I don't know if someone.
It's based on the documentation that was presented to the council, and it was based on the
And the discussion.
representations and discussions made by the applicant and the property owners this evening.
You have almost an hour and a half of discussion.
Yeah.
I understand.
No, just for the basis of why we're
I
denying it.
think just expanding the
Sure.
motion to include references to the discussion tonight, and if there's any interest in adding specific reasons,
Do you want another motion?
I would.
Okay, I make a motion to deny the amendment of the official zoning map of the city of South Lyon, rezoning parcel number 21-30-126-003, West End Industrial Park, from the I-1 District Light Industrial to the RM-1 District Multiple Family Residential for the following reasons. Number one, the proposed rezoning is not consistent with the City of South Lyon Master Plan, and more specifically, the future land use. Number two, there is a need to retain the city's limited industrial land. Number 3, rezoning the land to residential does not address a community need. Residential land use in the city is 65%. The site is capable of accommodating the range of uses permitted in the I-1 district. And next, residential use at this location is not appropriate due to adjacent existing industrial uses. Further, this motion is being made based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission and the planning consultant's letters and the discussion this evening and the documents provided for review and comment. Is there a second?
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is that good, Tim? Opposed?
That's acceptable.
Okay. Fails.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, new business. Consider the first reading of the ordinance to amend Chapter 58, Article 5, Division 2, sorry, just blinked. Sections 58-239, 240, 242, 243, to conform with state law changes relating to the minors that purchases and possesses or consumes alcohol.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. There you go.
Done.
If I can just add for one clarification, the governor did sign the legislation that will change the effective date to January 1, 2018. I will make that change to the effective date language before the second
The
reading.
second, yeah, okay.
And provide you with a black line markup showing that change.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Budget. Start with Lynn, or does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I always have something on the budget. I'm going to have this admitted into the minutes tonight. This is an article that I found that provides some interesting information, and I just wanted to bring it to council's attention and for everybody as we move forward in November, is that I stated this before, is that the city of Lansing, East Lansing, is putting before the voters a ballot initiative to provide a city income tax proposal. And the reason they are doing it is because they are looking at a $200 million in unfunded pension and health liabilities, and somehow the politicians in East Lansing believe that taxing their way out of the problem is going to solve it. And I would just say that maybe East Lansing needs to start sitting down and making tough decisions, like what we're going to have to be doing in the next couple of months, is making very, very tough decisions instead of going to the taxpayers and asking them to bail us out a little bit. On the spending side, in the city of East Lansing, their city council increased spending from $42 million to $48 million. And so I think you can see what happens when you don't have your spending under control, because there really is only one place to go for the money, and that's the taxpayer, whether you're increasing property taxes or selling bonds. So this is an interesting article. It's just another point to say we need to get some issues under control on the budget. Thank you.
John. Just one brief comment, and that's for the public. We did hold a meeting this past Thursday regarding MERS, the city's unfunded liabilities pension program. And I will say that there was some very disturbing news that came out, just basically how we got to where we were today. I'm not going to go into all of that right now, but that was the negative. The positive was that it did shed light on the situation that we have at hand, and I do think it was a very productive meeting because it really put in perspective how much money we have that we owe, that we're in the hole, how much money it would take to get out of the hole, and what kind of challenges this council is going to have. And it's a very serious matter, but I am confident that going forward, as a city council, we will be able to get our arms around this. It's going to be tough. I mean, everybody wants to keep spending, but you can't you can't spend your way into prosperity. It doesn't work. So, but I am confident that as a council, we will be fiscally responsible council that will take this seriously, and once and for all get ourselves on a payment plan and payment track to get this resolved, and make some changes going forward. Especially, we'll tackle this next year. So more to come, but I wanted to highlight that there was some positive discussion with some action identified. Thank you.
John, the other side of that coin for the MERS meeting was that we were already on a payment plan. It'll be 22 years to pay off our existing defined benefits situation. The really heartening part was the transition into a defined contribution system that we're pretty much pushing our way into, much as most communities are doing right now, trying to shave those legacy costs. So we'd already been approaching this solution. So.
Lynn, do you have anything to add?
Just that you will be getting an email from me that has a recent survey data done from several communities across the state of Michigan on revenues, new revenues that are proposed, what they've done, when they did them. I think it's very informative for the council, and I look forward to discussing it further with you. But I just got it today and haven't had an opportunity to look all the way through it.
Okay.
Downtown, Bob. Downtown Bob.
One thing I would say really quick. Trucks.
Pardon?
Finally.
Oh, well, not all.
Well,
2 more signs have to go up.
It's still there. So.
Can't enforce till all the signs are up. So, okay, my blood pressure's down. Sorry. We are not locationally challenged. We have a great location, a great community. So, enough of that. Just some highlights. You have a report, and I'm sorry that I had a little computer problem. We've had network problems, and my computer crashed. So, we've still got a couple corrections that we made to the downtown business directory, and so it's now at the printer for printing, and so I was hoping to have it tonight, but we want to get it right. So it'll be out very soon. We're making final revisions to the historic walking tour booklet, which was an outgrowth of the tours at the conference. But I thought it was important, since I've only been here a year, to get that over to the Historical Society, so I've talked to Historical Society members and some other city residents. So I'm going to wait a couple weeks for more input and then put it into a draft for the take to the printer. As was mentioned by the mayor, we've got a couple more no truck turn signs to go up, and that should be done this week. Banner poles, we're waiting on the 2 new banner poles out, which will be North Lafayette, roughly in front of 335 North Lafayette. There's an attorney's office there. I forget the name. One on each side of the street. So those, we're hopeful, will go up in the next 2 weeks so that Ladies' Night can be the first to use the banner. The corn stalks, if you've seen around all the light poles, that was something that the DDA discussed back a couple months back. So the DDA paid for those. Those went up a week ago, and there'll be some more ribbons put up, possibly by Friday. The plans are underway for the annual Kids Trick or Treat, October 26th. The marketing is also going to include, now the DDA voted on this, I think it was 7-1, to call it the Kids Trick or Treat and Zombie Walk. There are a lot of adults, business owners that want to enter in and get a little more involved So it's kind of an experiment. Abe Ayub is the event chair. Plans are underway, as I mentioned, for the Ladies' Night Out, scheduled for Friday, November 17th, 6 to 8:30 p.m. They're going to have a parking shuttle. Pick up and drop off is at 117 North Lafayette, Exquisite Kitchens, because there's a little alley that goes right off of North Lafayette. They've made arrangements with the Methodist Church, South End, and Salvation Army developer Brian Nager at the North End to have shuttles going. The reason for that is we have a much better business mix than we had a year ago. And the hotel will probably be opening within about a week of that. So as a backup plan, having the shuttles, I think, was a very wise move. So Marcia Callis, I mean, what a great success. I mean, we're going to have the hotel booming and a tremendous ladies' night. So that'll be a night to remember. That'll be great. That's really all I have. Unless there are questions.
I have one question just related to the signs. I was just telling Harvey and Mike earlier, the sign on the corner, Lynn, since Bob's not here, on the corner of, by the coffee shop. Okay. The sign has been totally bent around.
They fixed it.
It's fixed now? Okay, they must have just got to it. Wasn't turned, it was totally bent.
I think it was the one last defiant act.
Yeah.
Well, last Friday, just walking around downtown, seeing a big truck had the entire intersection all choked off going around the corner. I mean, I'm really looking forward to this being a solution to not having to go through that and the mystery of whether or not somebody will get hurt by a truck driving over their car or whatever. So
I think probably Lloyd will see this or has already thought of it. There are already some crafty drivers that are taking Liberty Street, Whipple Street.
Yeah, they're coming down.
So there was a hang-up of about 6 light cycles at Liberty Street last Friday. They were hung up coming out of Liberty Street thinking, oh, we don't turn here. So maybe some other signage, I don't know.
Oh, man.
Local.
Thus my warning earlier about sign pollution.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely.
So some of those side streets, you know, there might be another sign in our future. We'll see how it works.
Will we be approving the trick-or-treat closure next meeting?
The police department has not received a request to close the streets for downtown trick-or-treat
Does that come
as
from
of
the
yet.
DDA? That comes from DDA, correct?
Yeah. And they've got a meeting Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday. Abe Ayub will have that in.
And I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, and I don't think we'll get it this year, but hopefully next year. I do want to see eventually, someday, and Chief, I know we haven't always agreed on this because you have to extend it and there's some challenges, let's just put it that way. But it would be nice to see the roads closed all the way from where the former Browns is, a New Day Cafe, because you have so many kids and so many parents walking in down that street. And there's always cars coming in and trying to bypass the downtown. It would be great just to extend that road closure to make it more safe. But I know there's some challenges with that. So I don't know if that's possible this year, but definitely something I'm going to be pushing for sure next year.
I just want to let you know, Bob, that if you could please take this back to the DDA, the corn stalks in the downtown look absolutely fabulous. I mean, I've been in this town 20 years, and that downtown has never looked as good as it does now. To drive north on Pontiac Trail, see the American flag, see these corn stalks, I mean, you really do feel like you're in kind of a Norman Rockwell kind of town. It's just great. I can't tell you the visual impact that it is making by somebody taking some time and beginning to add some of the touches that downtown really needs. And also, I kind of wanted to bring to your attention, which I'm sure you already know, is that you do have some of the stores in the downtown beginning to decorate. You have Grand Trunk, looks absolutely fabulous. Lemon Tree with Annie looks absolutely great. Jan Skin Spa and Divine Yoga, they've got mums out there. You go down to the hotel and he's got, pumpkins that are metal carved pumpkins that are on the railing. Plus, he's got mums out there, in the landscaping. You go across the street, and Emily's got the cutest little fall things out. Diane's got pumpkins in her window. it's beginning to spread, and I think it's beginning to take off. And I think that's what shoppers want to see, is they want to see these seasonal decorations to the downtown. So I want to thank you and the DDA for really putting forth a great effort. That downtown looks just darling. It just looks darling.
Thank you. I'll let the DDA know.
Yeah, just darling.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Manager's report.
Well, several of my things have already been covered. The work session with Sue Feinberg from MERS was very productive, and the MERS issue will be placed on the agenda next meeting for discussion. I don't know if we're ready for a final action at that point, but it will definitely be up for the discussion. We also had the subcommittee meeting on the liquor license ordinance. That will be on the next agenda for the second reading. I think we came up with some really good ideas and plans, and I think the council will be very happy with the decisions. Thank you, Mary, for all of your input. We really appreciated working with the council member. It's that time again for the mandatory CDBG meeting, which takes place next week. So our next council meeting will be scheduling the public hearing, because that will only give us 3 more meetings to get the hearing done before the application is due in early December. Bob talked about the downtown trick-or-treat and zombie walk. I don't know, I'm kind of scared of zombies, so I'm not sure I'll be going this year. He also spoke about the ladies' night out in November. I really want the public to keep their eyes and ears open for more information about that. I think it's going to be a great time in the downtown. It's taking place on a Friday night. The hotel should be open by then, so everyone coming down should take an opportunity to visit our local restaurants, the Jeff Street, the Lake Street, the Corner Cafe if they stay open, the hotel, and then do their shopping. We also have the downtown farmers market that's got 3 more weeks, so make sure you get out on Saturdays to get your fall vegetables, gourds, and craft items. For those of you that are already starting your Christmas shopping, it's a great way to get your Christmas shopping done on some beautiful Saturday mornings. That's all I've got. I will probably be bringing to the council for discussion getting RFPs for security systems for City Hall. Over the past several weeks, we've had several incidents which have made City Hall staff concerned about visitors at City Hall, to the point where today police assistance was requested at City Hall to manage a situation. So I believe it's time we should look into security systems to ensure the safety of our employees. And that is all I have this evening.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm with you on the zombies. I want to mention somebody. Katie Wynn's daughter, Sam, last year was a little zombie, and she could have been in a movie. She had everybody scared. So it was, and she's a little girl, and it was like, so I think this could be really fun if people want to get involved. Okay, council comments. Harvey.
Pass.
Mike.
I've said enough.
Joe.
Well, first of all, I want to give this city council a lot of credit. We had an important issue with this rezoning request. And, I can't speak for council, but you see that it was overwhelming, pretty much a consensus that we need to maintain the character of that development and that land. And I thought it was really nice that there was some healthy discussion there and council agreed on it, because this was a very serious discussion and an issue. And the residents, so the personal opinion from me is that residents have spoken, and they do not want to see rezoning to residential. I mean, that people are looking at all the developments around us and Lyon Township and what have you, and they just see housing all over the place, and they want it to slow down a little bit. They want that growth to slow down. So I was pleased to see the result of how that vote took place. Bob Donahue, thank you for speaking up. I think that was terrific to have one of our city staff come, and you speak about the facts. I mean, there's some opinion there, but it was factually based, and that really put some legitimacy to the argument. So thank you for that. Next, I wanted to talk about Mr. Carl Richards. It's nice to see you here, Carl. I know you were sick. I'm sorry, had an injury, and you came here Thursday and came down on your scooter, and now you're walking. And it's a slow recovery, but I'm glad to see you're healing and you're doing really well. And I did want to thank, because it's nice because I know you have such a following from the senior community, and being a senior citizen yourself, people look to you. So it's good to see you come here and give that advice that so many people are looking for. So thank you, Carl. Along those lines, I was informed that our good friends in Lyon Township, specifically Abbey Park, they assisted with providing a scooter for Mr. Richards, and I don't know what the cost was, but my understanding was that they helped you on that. So big thank you to Tamara Ward over there in Abbey Park for helping that out and helping out one of our local watchdogs. So thanks. Next, one of the things that I did not mention, but I've been monitoring very closely, and it was pleasing to me, was I was looking at the invoices from our city attorney. And Tim, I've been quiet, but I've been keeping my eye, and I'm very impressed with how the invoices have really been in line with staying underneath the retainer. And that was one of my goals, and that was one of my criticisms, or I guess you want to call it, or scrutiny, was keeping those invoices in line underneath the $9,000 retainer. And for the past, Tim, correct me, I don't know, 3 or 4 months at least, it's been, they've been where they should be, and I just wanted to say thank you for taking all that criticism constructively and watching out for the taxpayers. So thank you for that. So appreciate that, Tim, and also appreciate Johnson Rosati Law Firm for your due diligence and all the hard work you do for our city. So thank you. Next, and lastly, I do want to give credit again to Bob Donahue specifically, and to our current mayor, John Galis, about these signs downtown. Now, I know you're a very humble man, and if I try to give you credit, you're going to say it wasn't you, it was a team effort. But, John, we had those conversations 2 years ago. That's what you said you were going to do, and you stuck to it. And, there's people hitting these poles, trucks hitting the poles, and it was just a dangerous situation. Fortunately, nobody was killed or injured or whatever. So, John, but you drove that project, and it's finally getting done with the assistance of Bob Donahue. So, we haven't always agreed on everything, but I do agree with you on this one, that this was the right thing to do, and it's a good lasting impression. So, with that being said, I want to thank everybody for listening to me tonight, and look forward to the week ahead, and want to wish everybody a nice week. Good evening. Thank you.
Let's see. How is looking into a PD clerical? Have you posted a job search and all that kind of stuff?
We have made our selection, and we have the actual hiring on hold, pending authorization from the city manager to make the hire. And I believe she's going to be contacting Sue Feinberg to clarify some restrictions on a temporary rehire of our existing clerk until council makes a final decision on a defined benefit or versus defined contribution plan. But I'll let the manager speak for herself with respect to contacting Sue Feinberg on the temporary rehire, which is our solution until we can get a permanent employee on board. And there is a dire need, because there are some times where we simply have no alternative but to lock the front door of the police station and have Novi Dispatch answer our phones.
Well, I know Chris Sovic is probably working himself into the ground with covering clerical duty, the window, and
He is doing that. We do have one cadet. We're in the process of trying to hire another cadet. So there are many times where we don't have a cadet. If the lieutenant has some other obligation, sometimes he has to fill in court. We'll pull an officer off the road. If there's only 2 officers working that day, then I don't have an option, and we just simply have to lock the door.
Well, I'm glad to hear, though, that you've got somebody in mind and things are just, it's sort of us catching up with the ability to hire.
She's ready to give her 2 weeks' notice as soon as we have the authorization to hire her.
That's terrific. Yeah. Do we have a date for your evaluation? I mean, that seems to be the most elusive date that I can ever imagine.
You should be getting the documentation for submitting my evaluation by the end of this week, and it would be on the next agenda.
Okay. The coordinated effort with the schools for the video, all the improvements to the theater here, is there any discussion being held? Is there a timetable when that's going to happen?
There isn't a timetable. When the budget was passed, I notified the schools. They were going to do the bidding process, but we're most likely just going to go with the organization that had done the Pearson School and all the other building renovations.
Okay.
Due to the ability to extend that contract, I will be following up on that. It had dropped off my list, but in assisting the gentleman this evening, it came back up, and I will be talking to them about that.
Well, if you could keep us abreast of that information, I'd appreciate that. How about the water wastewater director? Has the search been, or the language for the search been put together?
The language has been put together, but I have not posted it as of yet. We have had several people contact me interested in the position, but I don't want to be in a situation where we're not ready to hire, and we either lose a good candidate because they take a job elsewhere, or they decide they're not interested because we're taking too long.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's just a matter of weeks, though, right? I mean, once we end up pulling the trigger on our end, how quickly can MERS implement whatever our decision is?
That we didn't discuss with MERS. I'll have to ask Sue how quickly things can be implemented.
Okay. The fee schedule, I'd love to see that document show up here so that we can get this, the ridiculous water heater replacement cost at the very least, get that solved, because that's...
Dennis and I met at the end of last week, and that is another item for the last agenda.
Okay.
Last of the month.
Okay, and one last thing for Chief Collins, I'm assuming that you guys probably, the guys on patrol probably see some kind of truck pattern driving that go through the four corners there. Would that be a fair statement or assumption to begin with?
A truck pattern?
Yeah, boy, I can't think of any trucking companies right now, but the same ones that have sort of we're in their route, where they do it a couple of times a week or whatever, where they have to go through the intersection. I guess I'm trying to get some kind of a sense of how long it'll take for the typical trucker coming through town to be educated about the fact that he can't turn at the four corners anymore.
It'll take one prohibited turn for that truck driver to be educated.
Yeah, okay.
Now,
and his boss, I'm sure, will be very, very able to reinforce that.
We would prefer to do it via education. We'll put information out to the media. We'll put it out through our social media, our website. It's fully our intention to give some warnings. The most flagrant violators probably aren't getting a warning. The guys that are running up over the curb with a 50-foot trailers are probably not getting a warning. What is very...
They earned it, right.
What is very nebulous is the signage says trucks, no turns. So
I thought that was ambiguous.
If Councilmember Kivel is driving his pickup truck through the four corners, is that a truck? And technically the answer is no, and we wouldn't enforce that. But if you work your way up through the intermediate steps between the pickup truck that clearly is not a truck and the semi-trailer that's a combination rig that's 60, 70 feet long that we know is a truck, where is the line drawn? Is it a 10-foot box truck? Is it a mail truck?
I was kind of hoping that the signage spoke to industry standards, that triggers, anybody that's driving what would be classified a truck would understand that sign means them.
They should understand, and working only from memory, so don't hold me to an exact quote, but where we intend to draw the line is the Motor Vehicle Code definition of a truck is a vehicle that is designed and utilized primarily, and primarily is a key word, for the transportation of goods.
Well,
So-
I'm guessing that we didn't generate the text. I mean, this was our
That's the motor,
COC.
no, that's the Motor Vehicle Code,
Okay.
and that's what we'll be enforcing.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, the text of the signs. I'm
The text of the
assuming our
sign
COC.
was determined by the road commission
Yeah,
and their traffic control order,
right.
and that's pretty standard language for that type of sign throughout the county.
So at least we're on good footing. I mean, we won't have to worry about them saying, well, I didn't understand that meant me, kind of a thing, so.
They'll understand very quickly, but
Yeah.
hopefully through education and warning.
All right, that's all I had. Thank you very much.
My council comments are kind of interesting tonight because they sort of run the range of issues. The first thing that I want to present and have attached to the minutes is MCL 169.247, and it's one of the statutes out of the Michigan Campaign Finance Act. And the reason this is kind of important is because I just want to make sure that all the candidates that are running for mayor and the candidates that are running for city council understand that if you put literature out there in the public, whether it's a lawn sign or your piece of literature that you're going to be distributing, the state does regulate that you have certain disclosures or disclaimers that are put on that literature. Failure to do so is a misdemeanor. And so what you don't want to do is to start circulating printed material that does not have the proper disclosure on it. It has come to my attention that there may be some violations out there. I think that, to be fair to all the candidates that are running, I'm going to just submit this statute. You can read it. If you're going to get involved in campaigns, you have the Oakland County Election Division, which is very helpful. You have the Secretary of State that can help you. But don't start your political careers as early as you are by not following some of our election statutes. They're pretty simple and easy to understand. The disclaimer is the big thing. And that disclaimer is paid for by the committee to blah, blah, blah. It needs to be on your literature and on your lawn signs. And it has to be readable. So, and you have to look at the statute to see what address and name you're supposed to have on it. So you might want to take a little bit of time and take a look at the statute. But to all of you, good luck, wish you well, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands you got to play by the same rules. The next thing that I wanted to bring up is coming to St. Joe's. It's the Fatima Festival 100, and it's scheduled to be held at St. Joseph Catholic Parish. It's beginning Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of this week. It has a full agenda of activities and speakers that are coming in from all over the country talking about this event that many people of many faiths are very aware of, not just Catholics. But it's a pretty significant event that occurred in Portugal, Fatima, Portugal. It happened during World War I. So for those that have an interest in history, there was an appearance and there was a event that occurred on October 13th of 1917, and that was just about a year before World War I ended. They are expecting several thousand people that are going to be coming to the church, so the streets will be packed. There will be a ton of people in this town over a 3-day period. So I would like to welcome all of them that are pilgrimaging to the city of South Lyon from all over the state of Michigan and northern Ohio. I think this is great for the city of South Lyon. It's a very significant event, And it's a time of peace. If you know the story, it's about peace. Next, I would like to say that October is a wonderful month to enjoy. Please visit a cider mill, carve a pumpkin or two. I have to tell you, I've been at Irwin's, and they say they're almost hitting record numbers. They are coming from all over. I was down at Three Cedars Farms, same thing, absolutely packed and having record numbers. And the only thing we can figure out why there is such this incredible attendance that's going on in our area for events that are being held or attractions that we have is that some of the old-fashioned attractive things that people have are going away. And so the only way to get a cider mill, the only way to get on a hayride, the only way to get someplace and have warm donuts, with sugar and cinnamon on them is to come out to South Lyon. So record attendance at both of these areas. Please enjoy them. I want to let everybody know the Halloween costume at the Witch's Hat is going to be on October 28th. That's a costume party. We talked about the trick-or-treat party. The trick-or-treat for the downtown, I have a business down in the downtown area. Every year they're hitting record attendance down there. And I can just tell you that we are buying bags of candy every time we go to the grocery store. We will go through over 1,500 pieces of candy just in our little block alone. And this trick-or-treat for the kids in the downtown area is just growing leaps and bounds. And with A being on it this year, we'll be breaking records. We already know it. So have a great October, everybody. Just a super October. Enjoy the weather. Thank you so much for inviting me into your home this evening, allowing me to talk a little bit about city affairs. Carl, everybody is asking where you've been, not just the seniors, but everybody has been asking, and I said he's coming back. You'll see him soon. So you have been missed, and I'm glad you were able to make it to the microphone so the audience could see you. And good night, everyone. Have a great week, and we'll see you at the next city council meeting.
Couple things. One, Joe, thank you. We sat, I wanted to say this real quick. I'm always
I was like, it's fine.
So we did sit down there outside the coffee shop and talk about this, about the trucks. And it's the one thing I always had a problem with is because we live downtown and we've seen how bad it can get, and how much it disrupts the traffic. And a lot of the people tend to complain about it when they have their kids and stuff. For the years they've been saying, I've been hearing it. So we were sitting there the one day, and I remember asking someone on the old mayor, and his response was, and the same response was given to a couple of the business owners too, is that there's not much we can do because it's Oakland County, and that was the answer. Yeah. And I just felt that was just not acceptable. The buck stops here. Not the mayor, but the table. And like you said, it's a group effort. Bob was so instrumental in getting this done, and Lloyd, too. And sitting there the one day and watching the truck go by and hit that poor guy in the Jeep, and totally all the way down the street, the guy's Jeep was doing this, and he put his camera outside from his cell phone and took a picture of the semi hitting him all the way down the street. It was enough for me. I finally said, that's it, we got to do something. And I called Bob on the phone and told him what I wanted to do, and told Lynn and you guys, and it took 2 years. And you wonder why people get upset with politicians, but we did get it done, and to me it was a big deal, not just because it was something I said I wanted to do, but it was something I felt really needed to be done. And it took a lot of people and a lot of effort to get that accomplished, and I'm really glad it did. It's not quite done yet, but it will be.
It could save somebody's life too, John.
Exactly.
And
the other thing is, I'm gonna, this is a very passionate city council. At times it's been very cantankerous with each other, but it's been very passionate. And the one thing I can say about this group of people is that everybody does care about this city deeply. Maybe in a different way than each one of us all do. But when I'm making a request to all the candidates that are running, potential future mayors, there's many, city council, and anybody gets involved in the committees. When we work together, we have gotten a lot accomplished. A lot. And the list is long. You've read them. in the past. There's quite a list. Goes under the radar a little bit. I know the arguing and the discussions and the personal things that have gone on has been hard to watch. It's hard to deal with at times with all of us. Tests our patience, which you have to have, maybe more than people think. And at the end of the day, the bottom line is we work for the people, and you should hold everybody to that and make them remember that. Everybody that's up here works for the people. We represent the city, and we are all supposed to be the best we can for them, but we represent the people. So always hold people to that level of integrity. And if this group, or the new group comes in and works together like they can, there's gonna be, this city's going to make some waves. We've sat around long enough watching everybody around us do a bunch of stuff, and the questions were always like, why them? Why them? Why Brighton? Why no? Why, why them? And it's because everybody was off the page. Nobody was on the same page. We're on the page, but we got different ways of getting there. So I'm hoping that everybody understands that the last 4 or 5 meetings we've had have been actually okay, I think, in my mind. I mean, we've worked together professionally, and that's what my strive was for, is hope that would eventually start to happen. Whether we all go out and have a beer together or break bread or have coffee, that's a whole other story. But up here, we represent the people. We're supposed to work together for you guys. So hold everybody to that level and that line, and when you people, whoever gets elected, remember that that you're not bigger than the job. And don't let the ego get to your head. It's not that big of a job. It is, but it isn't. So if you keep that close to your heart and understand how it all works, we're going to be fine. And I'm still going to be around. So are these guys. So. With that, I want to thank everybody, and I jumped the gun and jumped over Mary.
It's okay.
That's because she went
I'll
to
make it
Greece.
quick.
She went to Greece for 3 weeks, so I have to give her a little trouble.
You're fine. I'm going to make it quick. I just wanted to give a shout out to the South Lyon Area Junior Chamber. They are hosting a pub crawl come October 21st, and it's going to include actually all the best brews in South Lyon. So you have Witch's Hat, you have Lake Street, you have Draft Street, you have Third Monk, and you'll be able to get different brews, different drinks at discounted prices. You get a t-shirt. And speaking of t-shirts, the South Lyon Area Junior Chamber is currently looking for sponsors to put their logos on the t-shirts. So if you know of any interested parties, or if you are an interested party, contact them. This is an event that benefits South Lyon, but also yourself, because you are going to be able to see the jewels of South Lyon downtown, but also all the proceeds go to Operation Injured Soldiers. So this is a twofold beneficial event. If you are interested, tickets are going to be on the website. There's a link to their Facebook page. So I would highly recommend it. If you don't have any plans, grab some friends, October 21st, the pub crawl for South Lyon Area Junior Chamber. Thanks, you guys. Have a good night.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night.